Welcome to Podnutz episode number 64, the show for computer repair technicians. We've been going for a while now. We like to mix up the format of this show. We interview people who are prominent and have offered a lot in the computer repair field. We did that from the beginning. We switched over to roundtable discussions, and we're going to keep mixing it up because we have a special guest today. And let me just get right into it. I'll introduce him right now. You guys have been asking for him, so I'm really privileged to have him on the show. I'd like to introduce Mark Rusinovich from Microsoft.com. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Steve. How's it going?
I'm doing great. Really happy you could join us. I know that the people listening are super happy that you're on the show, and I appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I think we'll have a fun conversation.
Oh, yeah. It always is, I think. That's what they tell me anyway. And Mark is in the Windows Azure group at Microsoft, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. And, of course, what would Podnutz be without the door-to-door geek, Steve McLaughlin, who's joining us for this special show? What's up, Door?
Hey, man, Podnutz would be a whole lot thinner.
What?
Podnutz would be a whole lot thinner. That's what it would be.
Well, you told us at the beginning of the show you like ham and bacon and pork chops. That might have something to do with it.
There's a little.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's Mark, some of the guys have wrote me some questions here. I'm going to ask them in a little bit, but I would just like to know a couple things. We'll get into a discussion here. Why don't you tell us, for people, I can't believe there would be, but for anybody who's not completely familiar with you, a little bit of your history. What do you do, and what you're currently working on right now?
Okay, sure. I guess I'll start the history back in the mid-90s because that's when the sysinternal started. It was originally called NT internals. I'd come out of getting a PhD in computer engineering and was trying to commercialize some of the stuff I was doing on Windows, and so that's how I started to get into Windows programming. I started at a company called Numega Technologies, which created kernel mode debugger and memory analysis tools for Windows, and they hired me and really couldn't figure out what to do with me, so I started writing utilities with Bryce Cogswell for Windows NT at the time, and the first tool we wrote was something called NTFS DOS, which is an NTFS reader for DOS. Then we wrote FileMon and Regmon, which are the predecessors to today's process monitor.
Right.
Put up the website, ntinternals.com, and then we figured we could make some money, so started selling software on a sister site called winternals.com. A lot of people get those two confused, but Winternals was a commercial side of things. Sysinternals was freeware. And I got into trouble with Microsoft in 1996 over this workstation versus server issue, where I was basically coming out and explaining that their marketing people were stretching the truth on some things. So I left the company that I was working at the time, Open Systems Resources, I'd gone to after Numega, and went to IBM Research. Worked at IBM Research on web server accelerators for Windows NT, which became productized by IBM as something called Netfinity Web Server Accelerator. In the meantime, Bryce had moved to Austin from where we were in Oregon, finishing our doctoral degrees remotely from Carnegie Mellon. He's just moved there on a whim. Friend told him the weather was good down there and fun place to be, and we started hiring people because he got sick of shipping software out of his apartment every day. So in 1998, we hired our first employee. By 2000, we started to generate enough money where it just didn't make sense for me to be working at IBM anymore.
Right.
We actually, one of the product that really kickstarted things was NTFS DOS Professional, which gave people read-write access to NTFS from DOS floppies. And then another product called ERD Commander, which is kind of what the Windows 2000 recovery console was modeled after. Those started to generate a huge amount of money. So I quit IBM, focused on Winternals full-time. I was co-authoring with a friend, Dave Solomon, the Windows Internals book series, which at the time was called Inside Windows 2000, that third edition. So I started to get to know a lot of the people at Microsoft through that, and I kind of rejuvenated my
relationship.
My relationship with them. So in 2006, Microsoft acquired Winternals and Sysinternals and me and Bryce. I joined the Windows division at Microsoft and worked on the tail end of Vista and then on Windows 7. And then last summer, after I'd worked through the Windows vNext planning process, left Windows and moved to the Windows Azure group, which is Microsoft's cloud operating system. And so I'm on a team called the Fabric Controller, which is essentially the kernel of the cloud operating system. Of course, still continue to work on sysinternals tools. I was working on them jointly with Bryce up until last October. He retired from Microsoft and is now traveling around the world having fun. So now it's just me on sysinternals. And so that's pretty much caught us up to where I am now.
Now, sysinternals is like your baby. Did you guys create all those sysinternal apps?
Yep, me and Bryce. So I guess right now there's about 60 utilities posted. Over the lifetime of sysinternals, we've probably written double that because of tools getting retired and integrated with each other. And it was some of the tools Bryce wrote himself, a bunch of the tools I wrote myself, and then a bunch of the tools we wrote together.
Yeah, I know that I have. See, I used to own a computer repair shop, and I know I use the tools. I know a lot of our listeners use the tools, but I think what a lot of people don't know is how many tools there actually are. I mean, most people that I know use the process. It's Process Explorer, or Process Monitor.
Well, there's both actually. Yeah, and that unfortunately those names confuse people. I would have chosen different names if I'd realized that.
That's Process Explorer. I think the one that I used a lot, and auto runs are like the two main guys. But is there any of those sysinternal tools that people should be using that don't know about yet? I'm talking about the sleepers, you know what I mean? Is there any sleepers in there that people, that you as the developer go, man, if people knew that this was available and what they could do with this, it would blow them away? Is there any sysinternal tools that you love that you would recommend that you think people aren't using?
Well, it depends on what use you're talking about. If you're talking about just focused on computer troubleshooting and repair,
let's go with
or
that.
Or more general. Let me pull up the list. TCP view is one that I think a lot of people don't know. It's if you've used NetStat, TCP view is a graphical version of that. Essentially, it's a lot more convenient to use and gives you real-time updates. Let's see what other ones might be interesting. Well, for troubleshooting, I'm going through the list. There's a utilities index on the sysinternals website, which I'm looking at.
Yeah, I got it up now. Yeah, most guys on the show are mainly virus removers. You know, that's one of the main things that they have to do. Malware, of course, just optimizing systems. So actually, so those are the. So I have been I've put together sysinternals malware cleaning talk as part of helping to promote the 0-day book, which we can talk about later. That the tools that I use in that are strings, auto runs, process explorer, process monitor, TCP view, and SIGCheck is another tool that I use. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that talk is, I think, what grabbed a lot of attention, especially in our forums. That's all people were talking about for weeks with your advanced malware cleanup talk.
Yeah, actually, that version of the talk is from like 2006.
Yeah,
or something like that. So I've done an updated version of it recently this year, which I've been giving, and I'll be giving a public seminar that people can sign up for 4 hours. They can either do webcast or live here in Seattle. Come to it on July 23rd, Saturday, which is focused on malware cleaning, some troubleshooting, but then mostly focused on malware cleaning.
Yeah, and just in case the techs don't really grasp this, using Mark's tools, you basically can get rid of a lot of stuff infecting the computer, rootkits, malware, with just a basic understanding of his tools, and his tools will get you a large percentage of the way there. I know the videos I've seen before, you go into really good detail describing what to look for, why to look for it, how to look for it, and then what to do when you find it.
Yeah, that's exactly what the talk's structure is. And then, and the last few blog posts, so I've got a technical blog on sysinternals, Mark's blog. The last 5 or 6 blog posts have been all cases of malware cleaning. And the last two, or the first two in a 3-part series on analyzing the Stuxnet virus with the
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I know, man. Your blog is killer, and it's such a resource. If anybody hasn't checked out his blog, Mark, tell me if I have the site right, because this is what came up as the URL. It's blogs.technet.com/b/Mark Russinovich.
Yep, that's it. And actually, it's really easy to search for. Actually, this is kind of flattering and funny. If you do a Bing search or a Google search for Mark's blog, it's the first hit.
Nice, cool. Nice.
So not only does he know viruses and malware, the kernel, the cloud, he knows SEO.
Yeah.
He's on a first name basis with Bing.
Right.
Lucky. The best part about your blog, I actually quoted this. I pulled this out to put in my notes here because I thought this was pretty cool. One of the paragraphs you write is, unlike most people in the computer industry that view the requests of friends and family for troubleshooting help as a burden to be avoided, I embrace the challenge. When fixing a system or application problem, it's me against the computer, and success is satisfying and always a learning experience. But that success also has an academic feel. With malware, it becomes personal, pitting me against the minds of criminal hackers. Defeating malware is a victory of good over evil. I should print a T-shirt that says, "Yes, I will fix your computer." I immediately agreed, and we made arrangements to get the laptop dropped off at my office. You were talking about, was it your coworker or friend said, "Can you take a look at my computer?" One of those jobs, and I don't know, man. I think a lot of techs, they go, "Oh God, another friend job. I don't want to do it." Like, but when you said that, I'm like, wow, that's a rare trait. But I get where you're coming from on that. And there's fixers in the computer repair world, what I call them. There's guys who love to fix it, figure it out and fix it. And then there's guys that just want to get the job done no matter what. They just want the computer out of there. I consider you a fixer, if you don't mind me calling that. You know?
Sure. Well, it might be different if I was cleaning people's systems all day long. It's that's not my day job. So when one of those comes across, it's kind of a funny break, fun break from the normal day to day. I
could see that. I just thought that was cool. But I actually do have a shirt, and I wear it all the time that says, "No, I will not fix your computer."
Yeah, I've got that shirt. I got that shirt too. Family member gave it to me one Christmas.
Now, did you ever wear it?
I think I wore it that Christmas. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if you wear that shirt out, you get more computer jobs than you could ever possibly think. It's amazing.
Because it's saying, I know how to fix computers.
Right, exactly.
Right.
All right, Dor, you got any questions for Mark right now?
Well, first thing I got to say, I cannot thank you enough for those videos you put out. It really opened my eyes to the inner workings of what those malware and virus writers and rootkit writers are kind of thinking. So it makes me as a tech better understand what's going on under the hood. I don't want to be a tech that just runs a scan and says, well, the scanners ain't finding it. I guess I got a nuke and pave. I don't want to be that guy at all. And the tools I just want to mention real quick that I love, I gotta say auto runs because everybody does. So it's great. BG Info we use on all of our servers at work. So as soon as we log in, right there's all the information that we need about that server. It basically modifies the desktop, right?
Yep. Yeah, it just creates a desktop background.
And you can put any information you can think of right there.
Neat. That's very cool.
PC name, IP address, uptime, yada yada yada, eons of information. I actually use config all the time as the backend to power defragment or GUI to defrag hard drives. I believe it does a much better job than most defraggers that I use.
Cool.
And I know.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say I haven't done any comparisons with config because config I really designed to just defragment specific files, not to do whole disk fragmentation, defragmentation. But
well, the first time I found that I was doing a grub for DOS booting to a USB key, but the ISO files had to be contiguous. And this was the only tool I found that could let me do it. So after that, I learned, well, let me just use this tool, period.
Cool.
And I just thought it was really good. The PS suite, I got to say, if you're a network admin, I don't know of anything that gives you more power than the combinations of these tools. PSExec is the one that I literally abused all over my network. Can you tell us about that application and how that works a little bit?
Yeah, that tool, I guess I wrote the first version of that back in 98 or somewhere around there. The tool, I was like, it'd be really convenient to be able to run certain command line utilities on remote systems, but have them appear locally. And with Windows not having really any built-in remote shell capability, I decided to roll my own, and thus came PSExec. And the way PSExec works under the hood is it requires the admin share on the local system to be accessible. So you got to be running with admin rights to the remote computer. So it connects to the admin share, which is mapped to the Windows directory, extracts a service executable, drops that, then uses the remote service API to start that process. Then it creates a name pipe connection across the two computers and sends the commands that you want to run to that service, which then executes it, and it connects the standard input and output pipes of that console process, assuming you're running a console process, back to the local PSExec application. And so anything you type into PSExec gets routed to the remote process. Anything that it prints out comes out in the console window you're running. And that's essentially it. And then it's got a whole bunch of bells and whistles on it to do different types of execution and run in different desktops, run in different user sessions, run with low priority, with affinity, a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah, it basically saved a lot of legwork at my 9 to 5, helping to admin 2,300 computers. It's much easier than having to call up a user, ask them, can I remote in, just run PSExec, and the issues are always getting fixed. That PS suite, I think, is the most ingenuitive suite for enterprise admins. And if you are in anywhere involved with the enterprise admin, you gotta check these tools out. The one I don't think gets enough credit is rootkit revealer. Can you tell us about that, Mark?
Yeah, rootkit revealer. So we at Winternals, writing system software and also at sysinternals, we reverse engineered the registry on disk format and the NTFS file system format. Rootkit started to get popular, get kind of some visibility in 2003, 2004, but where rootkits really exploded into the public, at least the computer techie world, conscious was in February of 2005 when a Microsoft security person at RSA conference gave a talk on rootkits. Suddenly everybody was talking about rootkits, and so Brights and I said, hey, you know what, we could take the technologies we've got and actually make a rootkit detection tool based on what we call a cross-view analysis, where rootkit revealer performs a file system and registry scan using the standard Win32 APIs, and then does another scan by looking at the raw data structures underlying NTFS and the registry, and then sees if there's any differences. The theory being that if a rootkit's hiding registry keys, it's doing it by intercepting APIs and hiding them. So you'll see something that's being hidden by rootkit as showing up in the on-disk structure view, but not in the API view. And it'll rootkit revealer flags those differences, lists those differences in the UX. And so we published that a few weeks after that, and it obviously got really popular. It really got a lot of attention, though, in October of that year when I was working on an update to it and running standard scans, test scans on a whole bunch of my systems, and discovered some files that were hidden on one of my systems that, after some investigation, I discovered had come as part of the installation related to a Sony audio CD I'd purchased, and then wrote a blog post about that got a lot of publicity.
Oh yeah, that blew up.
Yeah, really quick too.
Yeah. One of the co-host of Podnutz Pro, that was actually his question. He wanted me to ask you. He said, what led you to find rootkits such as the Sony rootkit in the Sony DRM products and in 2005 and in Symantec in 2006? Was it just creating that rootkit revealer and then like testing it out on certain things?
Yep, it was just testing it out. I wasn't going after anything. Like I said, I just done some standard tests of an update and ran across the Sony rootkit. Then as far as the semantic rootkit, I can't remember what led me to that one. Because I don't think I was running semantics antivirus. I think somebody had reported that, and then so I investigated and found that they were doing it. Kaspersky was also using rootkit techniques in their antivirus, which they quickly fixed.
Right.
And Semantic fixed theirs as well.
I can imagine they all quickly fixed everything.
Yeah, right.
Interesting. Any other tools, Dor, that you wanted to bring up on that?
To be honest, I think there's too many tools to go over. I would highly encourage people to just Google search sysinternals. You'll be redirected to a TechNet site. Go to the index, look at the applications. One of the big pluses is, here's one of my golden rules. You know it's a good application when it isn't like 300 megs. These are all teeny tiny quick downloads. All of them run super quick, super fast.
You can get the whole suite. They can download the whole suite, can't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a zip file with the whole thing. Yep.
Can't beat that.
And it's only 12 megs over 60 tools. I'll ask you, listeners, when in your life can you download 60 tools and it will be done in less than 10 seconds?
And all free. They're all free.
They're all free. It never happens. For. And I highly encourage you, do this preventatively. Don't react. Go watch his videos now. So when the time comes when your scans don't turn up the bad guys, you'll at least have a heads up on what to do, how to do the right thing to actually clean the system the right way.
It leads me to a question I've been meaning to ask Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, say you got a room, or in this case, a listener base here, all interested in fixing computers, removing malware, removing viruses, getting computers running fast for their customers, like back to like faster than the day they bought them, as that cheesy commercial says. What advice would you give this room of people? If your best advice, what's the best thing you could tell this group of people about removing malware, viruses? What advice can you give them? To like they each have their own routine. I know that each guys have their own routine of removing things. Anything you could input, like you got to do this, you got to do this, you don't miss this. Something they could add to their routine, or just any advice.
So when I go cleaning people's systems, I get, my mom says my system's running slowly, and when I'm visiting her, she'll have me go take a look at her computer. That I process Explorer and auto runs are the two things I run, and I look for processes that aren't essential processes in Process Explorer. The same thing with auto starts that aren't core system processes or related to the correct operation of the printer that she has, or basically superfluous stuff. And I think that the key to being able to do that effectively is experience in what is required for the correct operation of the system and any peripherals that are installed and any add-on software that the person's using versus the extraneous crap that gets thrown onto the system. Because you can go too far and actually start disabling things that might break the applications that they're using or break the interaction with the devices that they depend on if you don't understand what is essential versus what is non-essential.
How can one, my, yardstick for deciding which was I would like hide all the Microsoft services so that I wouldn't be able to disable them, and I would disable pretty much everything else that looked fishy to me. Is that a safe way to do it? How could people decipher the two?
Yeah, that's definitely a very conservative way to do it. The thing is that there could be Microsoft stuff on the system that's add-on Microsoft stuff that they might not be using.
Right.
But that's probably less likely. Definitely, that's exactly why I added that hide Windows and Microsoft filter to auto runs, to just call out the third-party stuff, right, because that's really what you want to go digging after. But if you're going into the device drivers, for example, and you see device drivers there, you better be sure that you know exactly what you're doing, because there's third-party drivers that might be required for the correct operation of a PC or laptop that are coming from third parties that aren't from Microsoft.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's a key. The other thing I do is with auto runs, you can disable or you can delete. So you can, just like msconfig, if you uncheck something, you're disabling it.
Right.
Golden rule of troubleshooting is try not to make permanent changes. Try to make it so that you can always return to the state you were in. So I recommend disabling, not deleting, because if you do happen to go too far, you can try to get back by re-enabling what you've disabled.
Sure.
Yeah, the website, to be honest, I've had very good success with when I'm not sure about a process, because some of the, I'd say 40+% of the time, the processes that aren't supposed to be running, let's say, they kind of stick out. Their names make no, they're like, the names are pure gibberish and then such. But the site I've honestly had pretty good luck with, it's exelib.com. It also does hijack this log analyzer for you guys that like hijack this, but you just simply type in the name of a process or exe, and it basically will tell you where its origins are. Now, just because it says one thing doesn't necessarily mean that is that one, because basically I can make a piece of malware called explorer.exe.
Yeah, actually, Autoruns has a built-in search facility. So does Process Monitor and Process Explorer, where you can right-click on an entry and do search online. It will hit your search engine with a query for that.
Nice.
So that will take you to those sites that have catalogs of known executables.
That is, when in doubt, I would always just Google the process. Yeah. But then you got to be careful, because some sites know you're doing that and will always tell you that the process that you look for is bad, so they can sell you a piece of malware to quote fix it. It's just crazy. But yeah, that's a good feature that you can just click on it right from the tool. What about malware, Mark? What do you go in manually and pull this stuff like out of the registry and stuff, or do you run like any specific program like Malwarebytes or Super Anti-Spyware?
Well, I think when it comes to somebody having a malware infestation, I think the first step is to go run whatever scanners that you can run on the system, and there's a bunch of free scanners to see if they'll do the work for you. Now,
yes,
there's a lot of malware that doesn't have any signatures, and so you're left with stuff that you've got to clean yourself, and that's when I fall back on the steps and techniques and tools that I describe in that advanced malware cleaning talk that you referred to, which is look for telltale signs that's typical of malware and use Autoruns, Process Explorer, SIGCheck. Strings is another tool that can be useful for identifying malware to clean off the system.
Is there anywhere that people can watch that video now, because it's too difficult to find?
Actually, if you go to the sysinternal site and you go to Mark's webcast, there's a link over in the resources section on the left menu of the front page. You can see my webcast divided into their different categories. Like Case of the Unexplained, those are troubleshooting session. You see there's 3 of them posted there. Yep. Then if you go down to security, there's Advanced Malware Cleaning, which is that 2005 presentation from TechEd.
Okay, good. There it is. Very good. Awesome. Just wanted to check. Couldn't find it last night, so I wanted to make sure the guys had a link for that, because it's just extensive, comprehensive, and killer. Okay. Dor, any questions?
Well, I was honestly interested to jump into the other topics.
Sure.
Because this is one of those things. There is no one tool, one way to do everything. Go watch the videos, people, educate yourselves, and trust me, you'll be a better tech for it. I just got to say, I'm absolutely amazed that one guy can comprehend so much about an operating system, because back in like Windows 95 days, I could look at the Windows folder, the System32 folder, and I knew what wasn't supposed to be there. I could just go in and delete stuff by hand. Now it's gotten so much. I basically rely on tools as my first line of defense. And then, like you said, if I can't clean, then I typically go to like boot level scanners, because, I'm lazy.
Yeah. Yeah. The system, everything's getting more complex. The explosion of different technologies, and even technologies within Windows, is just growing at this incredible rate. It's hard for even me to keep up with all the details.
If it's hard for you to keep up, then It's going to be tough for us.
I don't stand a chance. Well, one of the things that is on your bio is Microsoft Azure. And I mean, I'm in the enterprise world, and it's like, I'm not getting that magazine that's telling me about Windows Azure. I honestly found out like 3 to 4 months ago that it was up and running and live. I heard about it for years, but because everybody seems, they describe cloud computing slightly different. Can you first describe what that Microsoft calls cloud computing?
Yeah, well, I think that cloud computing, the way that I interpret it and kind of the Microsoft way of looking at it is you're taking advantage of shared resources, a pool of resources. So one of the characteristics is it's multi-tenant, where you're getting these economies of scale versus by contrast, in your own data centers, you're purchasing hardware that's for your own use. The benefit you get of cloud with the multi-tenancy is you get elastic scale and you get pay for what you use billing model. So if you contrast the cloud model with the on-premise personal or private data center, with the private data center, you've got an application. You have to model the worst case load of that application, then purchase the servers to match that worst case load. And turns out that most of the time you're going to be far off that worst case, and so your servers are really underutilized, and you're paying for this capacity that you're not using. In the cloud, you can pay for the capacity you need when you need it, and when your capacity demands grow or shrink, you either grow or shrink your resource usage and just pay for those resources as your application's consuming them. And the reason that you're able to do that is, of course, because the cloud's multi-tenant, so there's lots of resources that are shared among all the different applications that are running that can scale up and scale down, and somebody else is managing the capacity management aspect of things. You don't have to worry about it. So the benefits are that you can focus on just paying for the resources that your application uses. Now, there's several different types of cloud. There's what's commonly referred to as infrastructure as a service, which we're calling IaaS, platform as a service or PaaS, and then software as a service or SaaS clouds. And then there's the cloud skeptic type of cloud, which is MyAs, cloud computing. Actually, that's a joke.
I know.
Trying to. It's a new joke. I'm trying to work on honing that one. So the infrastructure as a service is you're renting somebody's servers in their data center, and when you rent their server, you're responsible for deploying the operating system onto it and then managing the operating system, deploying the application onto it, deploying the runtimes onto it. It's basically just hardware that you're renting. With platform as a service, which is what Windows Azure is aimed at, you're renting a hosting environment as opposed to a server, and you give the hosting environment your application, in this case an Azure application, and then Azure takes care of deploying it onto servers. It's managing the operating system underneath and the runtimes and updating those for you. You don't have to worry about that. You just worry about your application. And it provides, what Azure provides are services, platform services that make it very easy to write a 24/7 scalable application. And to highlight that, let me just, traditional server way of writing an application that scales is something called scale up. And the way that you deliver high availability is by these complex SAN solutions and clustered solutions with failover and hot standby. And that model doesn't scale very well, and it's very expensive and hard to manage. The Windows Azure platform as a service model is scale out instead of scale up, and you scale out for both increased capacity and you scale out for availability. If you've got 2 instances of your application's front end or middle tier, for example, you can lose one of them and still remain available, still be providing services, albeit at a lower capacity until that instance comes back online. But you're not completely out. If you're updating your application, if you update it through slices across your application, your whole application's never down completely during the update process. And Azure's platform services make it very easy to do an automated update through those slices of your application, so it's never completely down. And in today's world of the cloud, people expect 24/7 service, and they expect responsive service. And so if you're not writing that into your cloud application, then you're at a disadvantage compared to the people that are writing cloud services that have those capabilities. So that's what the Windows Azure platform is all about. And it's this platform for creating applications, cloud applications. And if you're going to create a cloud application, then sell it to somebody, those services to somebody, that's software as a service. Office 365, for example, a hosted exchange, that's software as a service, where you're just basically paying for exchange mailboxes up in the cloud. And the software as a service provider, in this case Microsoft, is worried about managing the exchange online application, managing the operations of it, managing the capacity management of it, doing the billing for it, and you're just consuming what you need out of it. So that's and of course, because it's the cloud and it's a central place, it's accessible from anywhere on the internet, and that's another makes it a hub for your connected devices.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's one thing I'm sure: Microsoft will have enough power to meet virtually anyone's needs. Period. What I didn't realize is, so to make an Azure application, you have to use Azure like programming language?
No, you can actually use any language. I mean, we've got first-class support for .NET, of course. .NET's in the image, but you can bring Java runtimes. You can bring, we've got PHP support in IIS, of course, or you can bring your own. You can bring Ruby. You can bring whatever, because it's just Windows machines. So anything that runs on Windows, you can bring onto Azure. To take advantage of some of the platform services, you need to use specific APIs and our application model. So you need to package your app in a certain way and write it in a certain way. For example, to get the scale out capability, you write or design what we call stateless roles, stateless components in your application. So any state that you want to persist, you store in external durable cloud state, like SQL Azure database or Windows Azure storage. You don't store anything on the local server that you're concerned about losing. So any data that, if you lost it, would be a problem, you don't store on the local server. Local server is really a cache. And because these things are stateless, it makes it really easy for you to scale out, because they're just copies of each other. None of them have any intrinsic unique value. If you lose one because of a hardware failure, big deal, you just spin up another instance of it. When you're updating, you take one down, your other ones are still running, and then you bring up the new version. And so that's the model that really lets you take advantage, get to these characteristics of the cloud 24/7.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense the way you put it. And it seems to me like Microsoft is pretty, I think, ahead of the curve of at least some people out there. And I got to say, that's pretty hopeful for the company as a whole, I think, to show this kind of foresight.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I came to the Windows Azure group because I'm so excited about the opportunity Microsoft has here. I feel like we are creating the equivalent of Windows 3.1 for the cloud. Is what Windows Azure operating system is. And we're in this position, which I think is really unique, because we have we've got the development environment, we've got Visual Studio, we have all these pieces that we can put together to make this really coherent story. We've got identity with Active Direct Access Control Server, which is being built up into kind of a cloud Active Directory. We've got a database, SQL Azure. We've got the development environment. We've got these connections with IT pros. We understand the IT pros. We've got System Center. So we've got all these pieces that we can make all work together to create this cloud environment that's consistent from the developer all the way to the IT pro that's managing these things, and connecting back to other on-premise resources where they're most likely running Windows Server and Active Directory.
Right. What kind of barriers do you find doing this, trying to do this all in the cloud, as opposed to any other way? I mean, it's a new thing, obviously. Is speed a problem at all? I mean, I guess with internet speeds these days, it's not an issue. But what kind of barriers is creating a platform like this have arisen?
So you mean barriers to adoption of the platform, or barriers creating? I would say creating the platform. Well, you're creating basically what we're responsible for in creating Windows Azure is we've got to make it scalable, and we've got to make it really cheap to operate. and that means making it self-heal and resilient to failures. Well, that's one of the characteristics of the cloud model, that whether you're writing a cloud application or us writing the cloud platform, is designed for failure. Everything that we look at, we have to assume it's going to fail at some point, and we've got to say, okay, if this fails, what happens?
Right.
Or if this fails and this fails, what happens?
Right.
So it's not like the server world where people write it and you're kind of like, well, my server's always running, and
exactly.
And if there's a problem, it's in a crisis and an emergency, and everybody has to scramble and figure out what to do on the fly. With the cloud, if there's a problem, it should resolve itself, hopefully.
Is that the biggest like apprehension of customers that are thinking about using it?
I don't think when we talk to IT pros, so first of all, ISVs, it's natural for them to go to the cloud because ISVs don't want to spend a lot of money when they're starting up, especially startups, buying a whole bunch of servers and provisioning them and worrying about managing the operating system. They want something that's fast and easy for them to deploy an app to, and where they just worry about the app and pay for what they need to use. When it comes to enterprises, the there's a couple primary concerns. One is what applications, if we want to take advantage of this new cloud model on Windows Azure, what applications can we move to that cloud model? And that might require some developer involvement. So, and so that means cost to them.
Right.
And so then it becomes is it worth, what's the return on that cost if we move something to this platform and move it to the cloud?
Right.
And some applications are so large and complex, and you've got them running and they're stable, that it might not make sense. But the other one is compliance issues, and your concern over data is another one, a closely related one, which is, I've got sensitive company data. Is it okay to be putting that in the cloud? Do I trust it not to be in my own data center, to be managed by somebody else's, basically essentially operations people? And maybe I've got regulations that I need to satisfy, or the data needs to be in a certain geographic area, or it needs to be stored in a data center that meets certain certifications. And so some of those are blockers, either blockers from just a lack of confidence, because they need to see that people are putting their data up in the cloud, and there's not security breaches that are going to be leaking their data out, or they've actually got specific requirements that they have to meet for whatever reason, as far as where the data can be located. So those are some of the blockers, and you're going to see more certifications coming online in Azure that will check off some of those requirements, so that if people say, well, it needs to be SAS 70 compliant for me to store my data there, then we're working on that kind of compliance.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think, me as a tech, I know if it doesn't meet a certain security requirement, well, wait a couple weeks, because I mean, it's obvious this is moving forward, getting deeper, getting better. And I know that's one of the things I always hear of people with the cloud, security and privacy. Can I ask, is this traffic sent over in a crypted tunnel?
Which traffic are you referring to?
Basically, you as a .NET developer have a choice, right? When you're creating the application, when to use secure sockets and when not to. Yep.
And it's so within the data center, we use VLANs to isolate individual applications from each other. So nobody can, somebody else with their application hosted in Windows Azure can't sniff the traffic and see traffic within your application, even if it's within servers in Azure of your virtual machines in your application. And as far as your connection to the outside world, you can use SSL. In fact, that's one of the services that we provide, is that make it, as part of deploying your application, you give us the certificates, and we'll stick them in the certificate store when we spin up those instances for you. You don't have to worry about that yourself. Whereas you're on an on-premise server application, you're typically having an admin go and stick certs into the certificate store. We're doing that. That's automated for you.
Absolutely. And if anyone has a server out there, I encourage you to run a process monitor application and just see for yourself how a majority of the time, and most of the time, a very overwhelming majority of the time, that server will be sitting completely idle doing next to nothing. I personally think one of the things I keep telling people is cloud computing is actually greener because you don't have to pay for your AC. You don't have to pay for all these boxes. You don't have to do all these things that you really don't have to do because it's just sitting there most of the time doing nothing. So I'm happy to see groups are moving forward with this kind of thing. I think it's just smart in the end. And like you said, the failover, that's the thing that I think is really going to make enterprises happy.
Yep. And you hit on some, that talking about greener, that's another aspect of the cloud and the cloud scale is that we're designing data centers where we've got people that have spent their careers on data center design and architecture that are designing the most power efficient data centers that are technically available today. In fact, the new data centers we're creating are container based with no walls in the data center so that they can take ambient air and use that as part of the heating and cooling.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
And so in certain geographic areas, that makes it, if it's cool outside, we can use that for cooling, for example. And the same thing goes for security. I know that, a lot of people have concerns about data being hosted in somebody else's data center, but what we've got is a staff of people that are focused on data center security that are security experts and security operations experts and data center physical security experts that are, unless you're willing to invest a ton of money in hiring that kind of expertise for your own data center, it's likely that the expertise we're bringing to bear is better than what you've got.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I always try to say. Cloud does not mean insecure. I said, if you stop and think about it, those are the people that know it and they can afford it. So there's nobody getting inside those places that isn't really supposed to. Because I know when it comes to physical security standards, I don't think a lot of the people understand how far companies like Microsoft go to ensure limited access is only available to like certain people, certain times of the day, certain circumstances, and so on. I'm personally a huge fan of the cloud. I personally believe I want it on the cloud. I want to have the same experience, whether I'm on my desktop, my laptop, my portable device, at work, or over at my cousin's house. I don't want to have to keep installing the same kind of things over and over again to get the same result. So I'm happy to see that they're moving forward.
Yeah, it's a killer platform, and you could tell just from looking at the graphic. I mean, if you can't see it, they have some, heavy hitter names already using it. NASA is using it. Azure launches the space shuttle. No, I don't know. I don't know what NASA uses it for.
For the last time.
Yeah, right. I don't want to promote. I guess I shouldn't promote that. Let's, Mark, why don't we do a couple listener questions, and then we can talk about your book. Is that cool?
All right. Sounds good.
Let me just give a huge acknowledgement to Steve Dubbs. I'm going to ask some of his questions. Steve had originally contacted Mark and asked him if he wanted to be on the show, which Mark accepted. If it wasn't for Steve, Mark probably wouldn't be here right now. So Steve Dubbs, you guys might know him as Steve-O. He writes in to Podnutz often. Awesome dude. Never met him personally, but I've talked to him on email. Awesome dude. Thank you, Steve. Totally appreciate it. He asks, number one, the new, just recently released Microsoft Safety Scanner. Does it have any features the other malware scanning programs are missing? He's got 3 questions here, real quick. But you could do that first.
Does it have any features that the other ones are missing? Not that I'm aware of.
I guess anything that make it stand out, or.
Well, it's free.
Yeah. And the other thing I like is it's only good for 10 days. So it isn't like it's going to sit around, get old, so people would accidentally trust it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Number 2, in your online video, and he gives the link, which I have to give the new link, but it is the advanced malware video. He says, you state that there's some infections that are very close to not being able to be removed. Has that changed, and what is the worst exploit out there now as far as being a real pain to remove?
So when it comes, I haven't seen any viruses that in the end ultimately aren't cleanable online. Although, like I said, things have gotten close, and for some period of time, there have been viruses that anti-malware can't clean for some period of time until they add features or functionality to the anti-malware so that they can clean certain types. The Aurora virus from last summer was an example of something that was very hard to clean online. It actually infects the boot sector or the MBR, and then infects core Windows boot executable in a very ingenious kind of way. And that one was not cleanable online for a while, but newer versions of Microsoft's anti-malware are able to clean it online.
Huh.
Certainly when it comes to somebody doing their own malware analysis and cleaning, where you're basically left to using standard tools to try to clean, it's very possible to run into malware that's not cleanable while the system's online, just because you don't have the tools to get around it.
Right. Do you find it difficult to use the word ingenious when you're talking about the hackers, or do you think that you should give them the credit?
I give them the credit, actually.
Okay.
There's some pretty clever guys out there working on this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like anybody else. There's good ones and bad ones.
Yeah. No, I shouldn't say hackers. I should have said like the bad guys, the bad malware guys.
Yeah, they're ingenious. They're still evil, but they're ingenious.
Right. All right, then this last question is about your book, so this will be a good lead into that. He says, concerning your new book, 0 Day, did you think the scenarios that you wrote about would happen so soon? Like the hacking into Epsilon, the PlayStation Network, the nuke plan at Oak Ridge, and what do you think? What do you think with our system security today, as they are, is the worst case scenario that could happen at a nuke plant?
So let's see. The first question was, did I think they would happen so soon? Well, it's been happening. This stuff has been happening forever. This Clifford Stoll's Cuckoo's Egg. If people haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. It's really an awesome book on computer hacking back in Berkeley. And when was that written? What's
the author's name?
Clifford Stoll. And it's called, let me look it up and see when exactly it was published. It's still really popular on Amazon. It was written in, well, that's...
The Cuckoo Egg? The Cuckoo's Egg?
The Cuckoo's Egg.
1989.
Yeah, 1989. So it's been happening since then, infiltrations like this. What I didn't really think would necessarily happen so soon was a virus like Stuxnet that was actually targeted at infrastructure. And I think that we're just going to be seeing more of that. So that's more directly goes to something that's specifically attacking something like a nuke plant. In this case, in Stuxnet case, it was attacking centrifuges in nuclear enrichment facilities in Iran, or that's what people believe anyway, generally.
Yeah.
Now, but 0 Day, the idea for 0 Day started with a much simpler premise, which is, without having to be terribly sophisticated, what if somebody wrote a piece of malware? If you look at all the machines that are infected with malware, replace that malware that's there doing financial stuff, which is what it's doing today, keystroke sniffing and website scraping and watching your bank login and doing botnet things. Replace that mission with a mission that was, on a certain day, the malware wakes up and deletes everything it has access to. And if it did that, if spread as far as malware can spread over some long period of time, really stealthily, that's kind of the premise behind 0 Day. Although I did I did put in infrastructure things into it as well, as part of just stretching things a little bit, because it is a novel after all. And the surprising thing to me was that Stuxnet proved that it wasn't nearly as far of a stretch as I thought it was when I was writing it.
What prompted you to write the book? Did you wake up one day and go, I got to write about this?
Well, I didn't. It wasn't a wake up one day. It was, in the process of writing Rootkit Revealer. Well, it actually started when I was watching all the various worms, SQL Slammer and Sasser and Code Red, blasting across the internet. These viruses that were just mischievous, and just their primary goal oftentimes was just to spread and not really do anything after they'd spread. But they were taking down ATM machines and causing airline reservation systems to go offline and slowing down the internet, and infecting in just incredible numbers of machines very quickly. Then I started to think, me and Bryce would have long discussions about cybersecurity, and looking at it from the perspective of what if we were bad guys, because that's really the way that you've got to approach cybersecurity, is not I'm a good guy, how can I stop the bad guys, but what are the bad guys up to, what can they do? And when we started to get in these discussions, it was like, you know, if we really set our minds to it, knowing what we do about the way Windows works and cybersecurity works and computer security works, we could just do some incredible damage if we set our minds to it and probably get away with it. And so that it kind of grew out of those kinds of discussions. And then with Rootkit Revealer, we ended up in a cat and mouse game with the malware community. We saw the way that the malware community was actually admitting, and this is back in 2005 timeframe, we've lost the war. We can't keep up. I mean, definitely now, the amount of malware being generated is an order of magnitude more than what the anti-malware community can come up with signatures for. Yeah. And so it'd be really easy for malware to slip through if it was stealthy enough and not end up with showing up on the bad guy, on the good guy's radar. Anyway, so that it wasn't an overnight thing. It was a journey of thought experiments that led me to say, well, this is a pretty scary threat, and somebody that was a little bit organized could really cause a lot of destruction this way.
It's very interesting. Did you, when you were writing it, and your mindset when you were releasing it, is this a wake-up call book, or is this entertainment fiction? I mean, did you have a secret, like, or kind of a purpose that you, when you were writing this, that you wanted people to get? Yeah. Okay.
It was both. I mean, I wanted people to read it and have a great story, whether they were interested in the message or not. At the same time, I thought it was reinforcing a message that I'd heard other people also coming out and talking about. Richard Clark, who was cybersecurity advisor to Bush and has been working in anti-terrorism and government administration since back in the Clinton era, or actually the first Bush era. He came out with a book last year called Cyber War, which was another his wake up call book on this whole topic. The fact is that today, if you take a look at our infrastructure systems, they're all run by the private sector, and the government today has nothing in their charter. The DHS has nothing in their charter on helping to protect those systems. Their charter is to protect government systems, not private sector systems like the power grid. Right. And also, we see case after case of those systems being proven to be insecure. People bring in USB keys, laptops from home. They're supposed to be isolated from the internet, but they're not in certain places. So, and on top of all that, when it comes to cyber attacks and cyber terrorism and cyber war, our government doesn't have clearly defined definitions of what those things are, clearly defined response plans to those things. So if something like that happens, we're basically just caught off. We're going to be caught off guard, despite the fact people have been talking about it so much. It's one of those things where, yeah, people might say, yeah, it's an interesting threat, but nobody's really shown that it's a real threat. It's one of those people need to see it to actually take it seriously.
Exactly.
And I think that's what's going to happen, is that there's going to be some massive incident, and then we'll all say, oops, we need to actually come up with some plan for this in case it happens again and try to prevent it.
I'm with you. I hope it doesn't, but I'm with you. Yeah. It's like, people backing up their hard drives. They're not going to, nobody backs up until they have a catastrophic failure and lose everything.
That's exactly it. I mean,
yeah, I think it's just a matter of time when, because I think we take a lot of things for granted and we're lax on a lot of fronts. But I got to ask it, since this is pure fiction, if this were to happen today, would my Debian-based laptop be okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It would, huh, Mark?
Probability. If you go by probabilities, yes. And that's because the 90% of machines out there are running Windows, and so the bad guys are going to target that 90%.
You had to put your Linux plug in there, didn't you, Dor?
I can't help it. Well, come on. I want to feel safe. I want to feel safer. I'm not going to say I'm safer, but I want to feel safer.
You might be less productive, but you'll be safer.
Oh, I can get everything done. especially
we could launch a whole show on that statement.
Yeah,
we could go for another hour now.
No, I'm gonna be quiet. Yeah, but and to be honest, Mark, I'm not a reader. Period. ADD, OCD, blah blah blah. Blah. And partially because I think the content doesn't grasp me. This definitely sounds like something that's going to grab me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely aimed it. One of the things that I loved about Michael Crichton's books and Tom Clancy's books is the technical aspect of it. While you're reading a great story, you're also learning stuff, and you're getting an authentic view of some area of technology. And that's exactly what I wanted to do here. I was like, okay, I want to make this entertaining for the mass market, and I want to educate them and give them a view of the world of cybersecurity and malware. But I also wanted that view to be realistic and interesting to even people that are practicing it, where they can look at it and go, yeah, this isn't bullshit. And sorry.
That's
and,
okay.
And I relate to this.
Right.
This is stuff that I see in my day-to-day job. So you talk about people that are cleaning malware and doing forensics. You're going to see a lot of your own lives in this book too.
This is like, even for people who don't read, this is like dessert for them. This is a treat.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think there's enough smart content out there. I think there's too much Jersey Shore and stuff. So I'm going to encourage everyone I know to at least pay attention to this. Look at it. Download that. You have a chapter on the website that you can download in audio, Mark?
Yeah, if you go to the zerodaythebook.com on the excerpt tab, you can read it right there. It's on Scribd, so you can read it right off the web page. Although that's not typically very convenient for people. But you can download the PDF, so you could put it on your phone or whatever you read PDFs on. And you can also download or listen to on the website me reading it. Up at the top, there's a Mark Reads Chapter 1 link. And you click on that, you'll see a download link for the MP3 file as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's at zerodaythebook.com. Definitely check it out. This is one for you geeks to read. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up now. Dora, do you have any other questions for Mark?
I just want to say I have never used a single set of tools that much. I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show, Mark.
No, my pleasure. It's always great to hear that. I mean, the tools, working on the tools is like a hobby for me, and what makes it really rewarding is hearing stories from guys like you.
Thank you.
Me as well, Mark. Really appreciate you coming on. We totally enjoyed it. I hope everybody out there enjoyed it as well. I'm sure they did, actually. Again, thanks to Steve Dubbs for asking Mark to come on. Mark, anything you want to say? Any closing comments? Anything we missed, or anything any website we missed that you want people to go to, or your blog, or anything?
No, I think we covered the Zero Day the Book blog, the SysInternals site, and Mark's blog, technical blog. And the Zero Day site, I've got a kind of a bookish type of blog, which is non-technical, just book news and stuff. And so I'll be linking to this, for example, once you get it posted off that as well.
Very cool. Yeah. No, okay. So it's the Mark's blog tab on zerodaythebook.com. Great. Okay. Mark, hang on the call. I'm just going to end off the show here.
Okay.
So thank you everybody for watching, listening, streaming. That is going to be it for Podnutz for today. We'll see you next time.